Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Illumi-Nation. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We just have a great show planned for you today, and I'm going to introduce our guest, and her name is Brenna Keeley, and she is a human design reader. We will talk about what that is in just a few moments, and she's also a creative consultant for spiritual entrepreneurs. She began her human design experiment 8 years ago while working in the arts and music industry across New York's 5 boroughs. Brenna brings a wealth of knowledge to her role as a human design reader, mentor, and consultant. Through her human design readings, workshops, and her engaging Authentic Bitches podcast, what a great name, she showcases her active embodiment of human design principles while teaching others how to do the same. Brenna, I want to welcome you to the show with Val and I this morning.
Thank you.
And before you jump in, I just want to ground our listeners with some of the top 4 personality tests that they have probably heard of. The Myers-Briggs Indicator, that's been around for 20 years or so. Then we have the big 5 that many people might have also heard as called Ocean. We have the Enneagram and the DISC, D-I-S-C. That's used a lot in organizations for personality tests and hiring employees. And guys, I'll have a little description of each of these in the show notes. I'm not going to go into them today, but for those of you who have heard of these different personality tests, Brenna, I would like you just to talk about human design for those who do not have any idea what that is, and maybe just how it's different from these other personality tests that people are familiar with.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you both to you, Susan and Valerie, for having me today. It was so nice and serendipitous for us to meet when we did. And I really feel like we're all finding each other in the time that we're meant to, right? It's kind of like wildfire. Yeah.
I'm always on like TikTok and I'll randomly just be very drawn to an energy. And so right when I saw you, I was like, nope, here it is. I'm booking an appointment. I need to see what she's all about here. So yeah, it's great.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that so much. Yeah, it's funny that you even mentioned actually the Myers-Briggs personality test first, because I always say that human design is as if you took your astrological birth chart and your Myers-Briggs personality test and made it one system.
Yeah, that's nice.
So what I love about human design, it's actually the study of your aura. So when we say energy type, one of which there are 5, you could be one of 5. It's the study of your aura, but also thus becoming your personality, right? Because if you're pushing your aura out into the universe, the way that we experience it on the physical plane is by your personality, your quirks, what makes you tick, what lights you up, all the things that excite you. So what I love about human design is that it really shows us how to be our own individual self and not feel like we have to be in this homogenized system, which any good personality test is going to do for you. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, when I hopped on there and started like researching my human design, I was like, oh, this makes a lot of sense.
It really does.
I am very direct. I go to the beat of my own drum. Like so many things like really clicked with me with it. I've done the Enneagram before. I'm an 8, no shocker there.
I have to do my Enneagram again because I don't even know what one I am. Yes, a 2. Okay, yes. I think that was what I had as well. Is that like the caregiver?
The helper, yeah.
Okay, yes, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive deep. Let's go deep in the human design. You talk about aura. Our aura is made up of our 7 chakras, guys. We've gone through the chakras in our energy systems. Let's talk about what it does. I've had mine done. Val has had her done, but what would it do for a human? Val, maybe this is the time where you could actually bring up the graphic so people can see.
Okay.
Don't worry, guys, about what the numbers are on the design. If you are listening, we are going to have Brenna talk, just if you're on YouTube, great, you'll see a visual. If you're not, it's fine. Brenna, talk to us about what we're looking at. Why is this important? What can this do for a person when they learn about their human design?
Yes. Well, I always say that human design is like gives you the full authenticity or the full map, if you will. It's an energetic blueprint to follow your energy rhythms that are natural to you. So that's when we're looking to the left or to the right of us and trying to find someone that's exactly like we are, that doesn't really exist. And I think we notice that, especially you talking about that on your podcast as well, right? So when we're looking at a human design body graph or your human design chart, you're going to see actually 9 chakras. So they're known as energy centers in human design. That's what all the shapes and the colors are. And then you have these tube-like structures. Human design is an amalgamation of a bunch of different systems. So the tube-like structures are similar if you've ever seen Kabbalah or the Jewish mysticism practice. There's the I Ching is incorporated, gene keys, as astrology, Vedic astrology, etc. So when we're looking at your different energy centers, I'm looking for where there's color or definition and where there's openness in your energy and seeing how energy is flowing through you. So if somebody is really looking for a way to just understand themselves better, you could use human design for your business. I do corporate sustainability training. So teaching small businesses, mid-sized businesses, how to work with the different energies of their people, who's better for marketing, who's better for, social media, who's better for meeting with clients one-on-one versus a group, a lot of that kind of stuff. So
that can be really supportive for businesses.
yeah,
Like, what is your strengths and what are your weaknesses? That's that's an awesome approach of being able to guide people in that way. I think people understanding that this is actually like a little montage of a couple of different things that creates this. And I thought that was really fascinating when I first heard about human design. I'm like, oh, like,
yeah.
wait, this is like a bunch of stuff mixed together. And, you have one side that means this and this side means that. Like, what is the red and the black for? Just kind of like explaining that to people too.
Yes, that's a great question. So anything that's in red is your design side. It's a design implemented trait, meaning that it's something that your soul was incarnated here to learn or experience. And I say you flex it, it's a muscle that you have to work out in the spiritual gym. Your body comes here as a spiritual being having a human experience. And through your humanity, you learn how to bring out the components of your design, things that are unconscious, things that are people are not so aware of at the forefront of their mind. Whereas anything that sits on the right-hand side or in the black colors of your human design body graph, and this is on mybodygraph.com, not every body graph platform that you get is going to have the same color. So I do want to make a clarification with that. But your right-hand side, your personality side, is something that you're generally more aware of or things that people see in you more readily. So what's cool is that you can see in the left and the right-hand side columns that there is the iconography or the symbolism that comes with your traditional birth chart, your astrological birth chart. So your sun, your moon, etc. So that's how I can also tell what people's moon signs are in their traditional birth chart, what their Mars placement is, their Jupiter, etc. So you'll see that distinction.
So this is actually my chart. I just want to announce that to the world.
Yes.
Just did a reading last week.
In all its glory. Yes.
Yes.
So before we dive into this, I just have a couple of questions. Are you familiar with positive psychology or strength-based work or virtues in action or any of these other assessments in the realm of positive psychology or the Gallup polls? Does that ring a bell for you at all?
The buzzwords, but not. I've done value exercises, but nothing really beyond that.
Okay, which is fine, but because that also positive psychology really took our field of mental health and tipped it on its head many years ago, and really looking at the strengths within a human being, and you take this virtues in action, and it really and it raises to the top our 5 top virtues, the way that we live our life. And I can really see some overlap with these different assessments that are out there. So okay, so let's say Valerie has her chart done, and then what? Because I think that we
go ahead. I'm going to let you finish because I
was going to just say we have our astrological chart done and we get all of these insights. And then what now? What do we do with this information? That's my
yes. So what I just want to like further that question too. I'm like, let me intervene a little bit because what I wanted you to kind of dive into even more, like looking at this particular chart, like when you look at these charts, let's say I was looking to try to figure out what do I want to do in my line of work, based on that design, like what kind of advice could you give me, and how you can support somebody to see their vision, see their life, and direct them in a place that's going to align to them energetically.
Absolutely. I'll start from the top here because this is something that'll be a good like anchoring point as well, because I always say in order to know like who we're talking to, what we're talking about, it's good to know like the differentiations between the 5 energy types in human design. So we know what the percentages are. This is where my 1-3 profile, if you are familiar with human design, you'll know what that means, but it's kind of like human design 2.0, but it's good for us to investigate. I have the archetype of the investigator as the line 1. So I'm like, here's a good solid foundation. So there are 5 main energy types that you can be in human design. So both you, Susan, and Valerie are both projectors, although different variations of a projector. You make up about 20 to 21% of the population. And you're known as non-energy beings, which means that you don't have a direct connection to any of the, or I should say the sacral motor center or the sacral chakra, meaning that you're not somebody who's going to, you have energy, but you're not going to be like, go, go, go all the time. You teach us how to use our energy more efficiently. You're the seers, the guides, the people who show us how to do things in a much more efficient way. You love systems, you love human design, you love anything that can give you data, numbers. It could be psychological personality numbers or literal data, accounting, science, etc. So it's like, tell me how to manage myself. And then I'm a manifesting generator. So I make up part of the subcategory that's under the 70% of the population of generators. I'm 33% generators, are about 36 to 37, I believe. The numbers are shifting the more data we get, with more people that are taking these tests and doing this information. But we're sacral beings, which means that we really, all the rhetoric that's like, trust your gut, go with your gut, like gut instinct, that's really accurate for us because it's a visceral, physical reaction. I always say, like, if you're marketing to me as a manifesting generator and you two are projectors, make it really easy for me to say yes to you because I'm only looking for a reason to say yes to you. Like, very easy. It's funny because projectors have these beautiful websites and like these beautiful designs and they want to take you on a journey. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But like, where can I just pay you? Like, just let me pay you. I already like you. If I'm here, I like you. Just let me pay you.
That's hysterical. I literally put this whole retreat together last weekend called Manifesting Unleashed. I channeled the whole thing. Everything was so meticulously thought out. And people are just like, yeah, where's the link?
Exactly.
That's so true.
Yes. That's where it's helpful in business to know, like, if you're trying to grow, knowing that you're marketing to a population that is pretty instinctual with their gut, or even if they need a little bit of time after that, goes back to like the traffic light philosophy in marketing. There's people who are red, they're hard no, they're yellow, they need a little bit of time, and then green means go. I'm a sacral authority, which means I'm ruled by my gut. So I'm like, yeah, it's easy for me to say yes. I'm diving right in. Here we are, right? The other few honorable mentions, obviously, for the other energy types, manifestors make up about, I believe it's like 10 to 14% of the population. Again, those numbers are varied right now, but they're a little bit more rare. They're also a non-energy being like you are. So they're also the oldest energy type, who are the kings, the queens, the conquerors, who are just like, yeah, I'm just informing you. Here's what I'm doing. If you like it or not, hop on board, leave me alone. I'm just going to do my own thing. And then reflectors are actually 1% of the population. So I always say, if you find a reflector in the wild, like, keep them close and study them.
What's a reflector? Like, I want to, like, who are they? What are they out there doing?
So if we're I always say this, describe the human design 5 energy types as like a movie set, right? So the manifestors are the directors that are directing everyone on set. The generators and the manifesting generators are the production assistants, the sound people, the actors, the actresses. The projectors are the ones that are literally like showing us the movie. Like, they're kind of like the conduit, because you show me what you see. And then reflectors are the people that are kind of like tapping in, like the sages that sit in the middle of our communities that tell us like how we're doing as a society. So maybe they're the angel investor of the film, or the person that's just kind of like behind the scenes, almost giving like the like Wizard of Oz, like him, like at the very back, like where you're going to find him. You know, and in a perfect world, reflectors would be able to just really sit. They're lunar beings, where the rest of us are solar beings. So they're ruled by the lunations. So their strategy in human design, every energy type has a different strategy for how they use their aura, is to wait a lunar cycle. So when they're making any, obviously we can't wait, you know, a lunar cycle for what we're going to eat for breakfast, but it's like bigger decisions about relationship, career, where they're investing their time and their energy. They have to live through all of the lunations to make sure that they're making the best decision that's aligned with them. So yeah, that's a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in your work, then you do something like this. Someone comes to you for a reading, and then you also help coach them in how to work with their energy. I always say we're not salmon. We're not meant to go against, right? We're not meant
I
to
love
swim
that.
upstream. We're meant to go with the flow. And
Yes.
that's really what this is about, right? Because a lot of us effort and effort and effort, and we really do become those salmon, and our life becomes very, very hard.
Yeah.
And so we all out doing these personality tests to get some new insights into who the hell we are and what we're going to do with our life. And what I love about human design is, I think what you said earlier, it sort of brings that personality Myers-Briggs together with our sun sign, our moon sign, all of these other things. And kind of like this, just this beautiful, I mean, because I really just do love the actual image that Valerie
Yes.
has up, because it shows our actual energy centers and where we can get blocked.
Yes.
And so tell us more, because I know all of us want to know, how do I go with the flow instead of against it?
Yeah, so this is kind of incorporates with where I caught you last week on your podcast, where I talk about like shadow work, or where you can be blocked by your centers. So
Right.
wherever there's areas, when we're looking at your body graph, right, you're going to see, unless you're a reflector, who are all open energy centers, you're going to see areas of color, which is called definition. These I say are like little shields of armor that protect your authenticity of those centers. So using Valerie's chart on the screen as an example, at the top, she's a mental projector. So she has her head and her ajna, which is like third eye crown, you know, like that, correlating to those kind of chakras. For those of you who are familiar with the terminology, your mental thoughts and your inspiration, your downloads from the universe, those are defined. You have very specific revelations that you show us, right? Can also lead to a little bit of mental anxiety, overwhelm, if you're not thinking, you know, you're not open to the downloads that you're getting, right? But thankfully, you're kind of already on your journey. And then we're looking for areas of openness. I always say that our areas of openness are our undefined centers, which are those white chakras, are energies where they're like open vessels. So say I have a small open vessel, you know, that can hold 4 ounces of water, and I'm coming here with my 12 ounces of water. This is like a defined center is the 12 ounces, and undefined center only has the capacity to hold 4. And so I go and say, if we're looking at the throat chakra, of which Valerie has undefined, and she has 4 ounces, I'm defined. So I'm going to pour some of my 4 ounces into that throat center, where she's getting a flavor of my energy. She's tasting what my vocabulary is like, my verbiage. She may pick up on some of the words that I'm putting down, you know, in that sort of way. And then seeing like, am I speaking the truth? She can kind of test. And that's why I love when undefined through people find me, because I'm like, you know that I know what I'm talking about.
I'm like, I actually always make fun of this situation, because I do feel like a human lie detector test.
Yes. That's where that comes from. And all your openness, it's so beautiful, because your aura is even more open to sampling the energies of the room. That's why I say, for people who are as open as you, it's like, where am I picking this emotion up from? Is this even my emotion? Where am I codependent? Where am I too fearful? Where am I unmotivated? Where am I, you know, the propensity to be a workaholic or addicted, I say, to like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Just, you know, it's kind of an amalgamation of all of your centers there, which we talked about in your reading from past life, Valerie, which is, you know, young Valerie. But it can really show you where you are blocking yourself and trying to let other people literally define you for what is natural for you. So I always go to look at what's called the channels in human design, and the gates or the gifts that you have to, in your natural personality, your natural aura, to bring into the world. It's like, you know, I'm a Scorpio moon. I'm not going to be worried about how to act as an Aries moon, because that doesn't apply to me, right? So if I'm following this system, it teaches me, okay, what are my gifts or my traits, you know, that I can kind of bring out naturally. Some of the ones that you have are the gate of the fighter. So it's fighting for the things that are worth fighting for, but it could also come across as, I'm going to fight for no reason because I feel like I'm not being heard in other areas of my life. So that fight has to go somewhere. Like,
no, that was something we talked about too,
Yeah.
where the gates was a very interesting thing for me. So, you know, getting a basic report and then understanding those little details were huge, right? And we were talking about this in our podcast the other day where I could clear a room. Remember we were talking about that? And it's like, yes, in my younger years when I was out of balance, it's very interesting how these different traits like surfaced in a more unhealthy manner as opposed to a much more healthy space, right?
Yes, I always say human design uses the law of polarity of the universe. And for any action that you have, there's an equal or opposite reaction. You know, I'm combining a bunch of them, but it's like anything you have could be used for a positive or a negative, you know?
Yeah.
And so when we're looking, if someone's looking to be like, okay, this is cool, but like, why should I give a shit about it, for lack of a better way to say it? We're looking at like, okay, I say, if you know nothing else about your human design, go back to the big three: your energy type, your strategy, and your authority, to know like, okay, everything else will kind of fall into place like dominoes. All of the numbers, all the little idiosyncrasies, that's like getting into the deeper things is like human design at a collegiate, you know, or PhD level, where this is kind of like human design 101, energy type, strategy, and authority. And I teach people how to use it for relationship. If you're, you know, a mental projector, right, who is using your mind to make decisions, or kind of like a sounding board, as well as another energy type. I think, Susan, you're an emotional projector, right? Your emotional authority.
I'm self-projector.
Okay. So you need to like say things out loud to even know, like, do you talk to yourself a lot?
Yes.
Or, like,
I need to speak out loud to hear my truth.
Yes.
And I've always known that. Sometimes it can be rambling. It can drive people crazy because
Right.
I have to process, and I don't even need anyone to process with me. I just need to talk it. I work with clients and I will hear the truth in my own language as I'm talking. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'll have my own epiphany as I'm talking.
Yes. And that's a beautiful use of your gift, because for someone like me who doesn't need to speak out loud per se, sometimes I do, but it's not my, you know, the word I want to say is MO. It's not the way that I naturally do that, right? For me, it's much more somatic versus out loud. And I can just kind of take action because I'm a sacral authority. It's like it's a not my circus, not my monkey's philosophy. If I don't need to talk out loud, I'm not worried about the fact that Susan does. I'm not going to let Susan be Susan. And that's why I say it lets us be. Human design made me so much more compassionate. I could be such an asshole and so judgmental sometimes in my late teens and like early 20s before I found human design, because I was like, well, why are they doing it like that? And I realized that trait in me was me realizing, oh, they're out of alignment, but I just don't know what their true alignment is. So it's like the negative use of what is a big gift of mine now, where I'm like, oh, I'm just meant to bring you closer because you're looking for the alignment. You're looking for the adjustment. And I always say this to people, usually what you're already doing with your human design, it's the right idea of your traits, but the wrong execution.
Yeah.
So say you're somebody who wants to help people in spirituality and astrology, but you got your degree in, you know, psychology,
Economics. Yeah, I was thinking economics.
Right. Or economics, right? Like, it's a system that you love to study, like that's easy for you to understand. You're a quick learner, you can pick things up really quickly. This is also true for people who have the channel of structuring, which is like endearingly known as like the genius freak energy. Valerie, you have half of that channel where it's like people who are I call it Elon Musk energy. Like, you're really smart, but if people are in the room that like just are not at the level of understanding your vocabulary, or you're at PhD where they're like, give me a third grade level of this information, they're going to be so overwhelmed to kind of see you as a freak instead of a genius. Right. So it's like, you know,
in my regular interpersonal relationships, when I'm working, it's beautiful because I'm obviously channeling, so I don't have to worry about what's coming out of my mouth.
Right.
It's just a straight channel from source.
Right.
It's a little smoother.
If you were picking up on that, yes, in your economic, you know, say you work in accounting and you're in your cubicle, you know, and you're picking up on things in other people's energy, and you start using that in that space. People aren't ready for it, so you're going to feel unappreciated. But that doesn't mean your gifts are wrong. It's just you're using them for the wrong people, or the at a time where those people aren't ready to hear those types of things.
Yeah.
And that's and what I was saying earlier, to sort of bring it back to that analogy of feeling like we're pushing against a wall or swimming against the tide. That's what I'm talking about. It is always an indicator to us around alignment. it is not that we're not broken. I say this all at
Yeah.
least once a week. We're not broken. It's understanding though, how do I get in alignment? I call it my human self and my spiritual higher being to get into alignment when things flow more smoothly. And it's not the big things, it's the little things. Things show up, things are easy. You know, I have this one story one day when my refrigerator was packed and I couldn't find the feta cheese. And the feta was this really important ingredient for this particular thing I was making. And I hit something and the feta literally dropped. It was shoved so far back in the fridge and it dropped down. And I looked at Spirit and I said, thank you.
Thank you.
And you know, but it's those things where it's the little tiny synchronicities where life just seems to work in an easier way. And that's when you know you're in alignment. And if someone cuts me off in traffic, I know it's my own energy. That I need to center, that I called that in. It's a reflection of my own frustration that's happening for me. And so that's what I love about this human design. I love the visual of it.
Yeah.
Because for those of us that are visual like me, I love to be able to see what you're talking about. And actually, it's just a beautiful, simple thing.
It's different. And actually, that's why when I made my appointment, I'm like, can I print this? Like, I need the paper version of it all. Like, it to be able to go back to the gates and read them and understand them. So I know that we originally started talking about like, what would your advice be here? So looking at my human design, you know, there's obviously jobs that could align to this. If you're advising somebody in life and they're like, I don't know where to go, what to do, look at my human design and tell me what could really align to a work position.
Yeah. So whenever I see somebody with the sum of all of your parts, right? And this is really important where like we need to know, like what I'm saying for the specific type of mental projector for you is not even going to apply for every mental projector that may listen to this podcast. So with projectors, you guys will love to hear that you're really only meant to work like 4 to 5 hours a day. With people, so you're like, great, I already did it. Right?
We start my work day at 10, 11.
Yes. Well, I usually don't take any clients before 12 o'clock. And I always say this just as a little bit of a tangent before I give you some tips, is that a lot of times when I see my spiritual entrepreneurs, and I have a lot of 10th house energy. So I use human design most commonly with career and relationship are the two big ones that everyone asks me about. But I say, when you're leaving a 9-to-5 job and kind of transitioning from 9 to 5, the whole reason you left to be an entrepreneur is that you don't create the same structures that you left, you know, like you wanted to leave behind in the corporate life. So I usually teach people how to like nip that in the bud, because usually then they're like, oh, well, you know, my work days start at 9 to 5. We're saying 9 to 5, 9 to 5. I'm like, yeah, but for me, I like a long morning routine. I need an 8-hour morning routine before I take my first client for the day.
I'm right there with you. I'm on the same wavelength. I take Wednesday off every day in the middle of the week to group because I feel like it.
Exactly.
Okay, I also have to interrupt this for a PSA. I have got to just say something that it was the human design chart that when I had mine done, and it said the exact same thing. You're not supposed to be working and I left my corporate job of 30 years. I've been in corporate America a year ago, and I was always exhausted. And I do a lot of energetic output, right? Just when I was doing trainings, whatever. And when I saw I was only supposed to work 6 hours a day, I wanted to go show all the people in my life, like, this is why I've been so tired. I'm not even supposed to work this much.
This is your fault. Yeah. How dare you put me in the system? I know.
Oh my gosh.
But it was so validating for me because, you know, now I'm doing individual work again, and I really do need that downtime. But I do love my morning routine. I love to get up. I love to go exercise. I love to do all the things. And I'm the same way. I won't take a client before 11 in the morning. And so I love that you're saying this.
We're all on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
But where you're like, it's so funny because I have a couple close girlfriends that are projectors, and I was talking about my day. We were leaving each other. We had gotten coffee and gone to our friend's vintage store in New Jersey. I'm in the Northeast, and she's a projector, and I was like, yeah, so I have to go pick up my birthday cake, and then I have recorded for the podcast after that, and then I'm going to go on TikTok live for 4 hours because I do like my human design hotline via TikTok, and she's just staring at me, and I'm like watching her being like, how are you going to do all that? And she was like, you know, how are you not tired? And I was like, Well, I know why you're saying that. And I said, for me as a manifesting generator, I can, like, I don't start at 12, but I don't stop until like 10 o'clock. But
Yeah.
that works for me because I also take tempered breaks throughout my day. So
Right.
that's what, there's still times and stopping points, or I have landing points where I'm kind of like, as projectors, you're like these birds that are flying around, watching all of us elephants and giraffes and etc. To use the animal kingdom metaphor.
Yeah.
On the ground, but we still have days where we're resting. I take naps sometimes throughout the day, things of that nature. So, it's you guys get to work smarter, not harder with your time. And the more that you flex that muscle of showing us that that's possible, the more you actually allow even us manifesting generators and generators to be like, yeah, it's okay to sit down for 20 minutes and have a snack or a cup of tea to like ground yourself in between your client meetings, especially for anyone who's of a spiritual discipline, that's doing energy work. It requires so much of us. So, what's keynotes. And Susan, do you know if you have gate 5, for example, in your chart off the top of your head?
Yes, I do have gate 5. As a
Okay.
matter of fact, I've got my whole
Oh,
the thing that I got is like 1,000,000 pages long.
yeah, that makes sense. It's easy to do. And there's probably another addendum that you could get a human design reading every single day for a year, and it would be different every single day. Like there's something new that you can learn. That's how vast the system is.
I really like that about it too. Like
Yeah.
I've done an original one, and then I booked with you for some details on the gates. I'd probably book again for the energy centers and understanding that on a deeper level. There's so much to tap into when it comes to the design.
I love it. So then all 3 of us have gate 5, which is the gate of fixed rhythms. There's one of 64 gates that you can have, right? So for us, it is so destabilizing on a mental, emotional, psychological level when our routine is thrown. That's why it's really good for us to have good boundaries. And for remember earlier I was saying for every way that you are, there's an equal or opposite way on the other side of it. So gate 15 people who gate 5 is right in that, it's the second square from the bottom. It sits in the sacral chakra, which is a motor center. So it's what gets us going. So our routines are what are like, I always call them anchor points. Like my coffee in the morning, whether it's a triple espresso or a half cap, is like grounding me. Right.
Yeah.
That's my moment. I do that no matter what. You couldn't pry it from my cold dead hands. Like that's
Oh
how
God, I'm the same way. I actually have the same breakfast every single morning.
Yes.
As the animals get fed, I literally change their water bowls in a certain order. It sounds so ridiculous, but it's automatic. I just get up and they're all waiting there. The cat's waiting for the treats and the food. Like everyone knows what's happening next. It's very predictable.
Yes, and animals love that too. So it's like even more of like the validation in that. And so for the people across from that who have gate 15, right? I say if you have one gate, that's half your channel is filled, right? It's as if you have one outstretched arm with one type of personality. For us, it's gate 5. When we have people that are gate 15, we shake arms and we agree to create flow in life, with any of these shifts. Yeah, it's so funny. It's how I'm a
That's super sweet. I love this so much.
Yeah.
Everything is expressive. And because I'm born and raised in New Jersey, like everything is with my hands automatically. So I'm not Italian, I'm mostly Irish, but like it just fits for the sacral. It was supportive of that with where I grew up. But gate 15, gate of extremes, there are people who are going to be obsessed with I was reading a young mom yesterday who's a professional makeup artist looking to get back into her career. She has 2 under 4. And she was saying, I used the berry analogy. I was like, your children are going to be obsessed with strawberries for 3 months and you're going to get them at Trader Joe's or Aldi's. And then you're only going to get the small pack. And you're like, okay, this was 1 day's worth of berries. Let me go to Costco and get the $30 mega pack or whatever, and then they're going to wake up 3 days from now and be like, Mom, I don't want berries anymore. And then you have 75% of the container left. And you're like, that's gate 15 people. Like they're hyper fixated on something. You're going to resonate with this too, Valerie, because of your gate 52 a little bit, where you'll have a hyper fixation. And then you're like, okay, I'm on to the next thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that's very manifesting generator and generator. We're a lot of manifesting generators, just to give, for those man gens listening, you're going to get the judgment that you're too flighty. You should finish what you start. You should finish things until the societally acceptable ending of things. If I listened to that, I would not be, working for myself as a human design reader at 30 years old. I just turned 30 in March, right? So it's like, I say I was like the Jill of all trades. I think I had like 13 or 14 jobs at least for the course of my 20s.
Girl,
And
I can relate to that. So
yeah.
I think part of what you described as my energy is kind of like going to the beat of my own drum. I
Yeah.
genuinely do not care what
Yes.
anybody thinks of me. It's so deeply rooted into me.
Yeah.
I have had so many careers. I'm like, I need to find the right fit, you know, and I'm like, let me do this, let me do that, let me do this, let me start my own business, let me try this business. And then finally I landed and I'm like, I'm a shadow worker. You look at my energy centers, it's like exactly what it needs to be.
It's so true because you're using your mind to basically reflect back from the throat down what you're seeing in other people. I say like it's like the shiny white sun, you know, of your open energy centers that's shining a light, illuminating, haha.
Yes, I love it.
You know, what's happening, right? So with your mind or your ajna, what the centers that are defined, it's like you're just meant to be the channel. Like with a mental projector, I'm using my mental capacity for this project, and then you guys do the work. So delegation is like your best friend, where it's like you can delegate to someone that's a generator or a manifesting generator like me, manifestors for different things. But like it's for all of us, we can learn how to build much more sustainable communities, delegate more effectively if we know our human design. So it's nice. Yeah, I know that you already know your gifts in that with being a mental projector too, of like, I just need to use my brain. And that's all, that's what I'm good for. It's not, that's all I'm good for. People can project that onto you, but it's like, no, that's what I'm good for. And the people that work with me are going to accept that.
Yeah, exactly. So within the work, it's like I do deeply feel like the shadows in people. And I think maybe that's like probably like the open centers that are and it's almost like they can't hide it. It's like I can feel it, you know?
Literally, because with that open G center, which is this diamond-shaped center in your chest, it could be fuel for codependency, or it could be a mirror to show people, are they in the right path? Are they a lot of people come to me where they're usually the givers. They say givers have to have boundaries because takers never have any. The people that will find us that come to us in relationship are the people that give so much and martyr so much to the people that don't actually care about them, you know, because they're chasing love in one direction or chasing attention. That could also be with a boss, you know, like you're groveling for that attention, and you're meant to show them, hey, like that care and that love is supposed to be poured into you first, and then you fill their cups from your overflow. So that's a beautiful way that you would use that gift to show people, like, where are they giving too much and not enough to themselves? And they need to be shown how to push create some good energetic hygiene, energetic boundaries to push that.
So basically on a spiritual level, I'm like right on track with where I should be. But outside of spiritually, let's say I was just like in the regular world, not, you know, channeling spirit all day. What would a good profession be for a lineup like that, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's monetizing your intellectual property. So being paid for being like very analytical, maybe a little data driven, spotting trends, spotting patterns.
That's what shadow work is, spotting patterns.
Exactly. So you could literally do that with like logistics of any nature, like economic trends. Like if you wanted to be a day trader, you know, or some. I have an ex-boyfriend of mine who I've met up with 8 years later, that I just ran his human design body graph because it was we broke up right before I started my human design journey, and he has channels similar to yours, and he's a day trader, you know. So like, that's so funny that you're using it. Like I see you, you know, not a spiritual discipline, and what a big part of my corporate sustainability training is. Like I'm a millennial, right? So I am of the generation that is now surrounded in like quiet quitting, right? And like the detachment, the healthy boundaries of the workplace. But I always say, like, if our corporate structures want to sustain themselves and still be a good working ecosystem, like you have to adopt something like human design. Like Myers-Briggs personality test alone is not gonna cut it anymore. We tried it, right? It got us a little bit closer, but then we're like, okay, this is a fun team building thing. This isn't something that we're actually training our people to use, you know, after that day is over. And we did, like, you know, it's Employee Appreciation Month next month. So like we did it for a day and then everyone conveniently forgot about it, and it's back to our regularly scheduled programming.
May I interject?
Absolutely.
Brenna, because what I've done for the last 20 years is working with large behavioral health organization to do massive implementation around something called measurement-based care, not to derail us, but the point is implementation fails on within organizations because of exactly what you're saying. They pull in consultants, you do this big thing, no matter what the thing is, right? It can be anything, but where implementation starts to fall apart is just that, integrating it into the day-to-day. What does that look like? We have this personality test. We get the big thing. We're all excited. We put it on a grid. We're like, oh, you're good at this. I'm good at this. But we have no idea what integration actually looks like on a day-to-day in these huge systems. And I always say this huge systems are typically all broken. So I'm interested in this work that you are doing with entrepreneurs. How do you, okay, so everybody takes the thing, or maybe just the CEO does. I don't know. I want you to go a little deeper into that. And then what does integration look like? Because implementation is where most organizations fall down with whatever it is they're trying to create.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And I love that you already know, like, on a ground level what this looks like too, because that's so helpful. And thank you for interjecting that, because it'll bring people to bring it all together, drive it home. So when we're meeting with the group, I usually just focus on the 5 energy types, and we'll really, if there's people who, like, chances are there's very rarely a reflector, because they do only make up 1% of the population. I'll touch on it so people know what reflectors are, but I'm really focused on what are the main energy types of the people in the room. So it's primarily generators, projectors, and a couple manifestors that I get in the mix, especially if I'm working with somebody who's like, you know, criminal defense attorney or something of those lines. Like that's a polarizing position to have. So they have some strong characteristics. And then we'll do one-on-one individualized readings to talk to people about, like, okay, this is what it is to be a generator for you, Mark and Sam, but for you as an individual, Marie, this looks like this because of the sum of all of your parts. And then we'll talk about their authority, if they're an emotional or a sacral authority, if their gut instinct is immediately like, no, something's wrong, you know, and then you don't really know why, and you need time to process it through your emotional wave. I'll tell them to advocate for themselves, to be like, hey, I know that you wanted me to answer that in 30 minutes. Give me like a day or two to sleep on it, and I'll come back to you with a much more effective answer. Now, again, I always say at the very top, this is a spiritual system that we are adopting into a corporate, like, capitalistic society. So I would be dismissed or remiss to tell you that it's going to work 100% perfectly 100% of the time, but just starting to incorporate and have a lot of more empowering, like, self-advocacy, and saying, like, here, like, I'm not just being an asshole. Like, I actually need time to think about this because of my solar plexus authority, to go through my emotional wave or my emotional processing. That's how we can teach people. I always say you have to teach people how to treat you, and knowing that it's not coming from a place of pushing that person away or trying to dismiss their feelings, but knowing, like, hey, I'm going to show up for you so much more authentically if I learn how to communicate. So a lot of the times what we are really teaching people, once I do these one-on-ones with each of them on the team, is like how to advocate for themselves as an individual.
I love this because obviously with shadow work, it's a different form of this, right? Yeah. So where you are teaching somebody to deeply know themselves coming from a place of self-love. Like, what are these vibrations or frequencies in me that are telling me I'm not good enough, that are telling me that I am not acknowledged by the world, that I'm alone in this world, whatever. So we go through these different frequencies and teach them how to understand their needs, how to vocalize their needs, step into a place of vulnerability. And I think that it brings, like, your emotional IQ to a certain stance, right? And so I actually love that this is connected in this way to a corporate environment, because it's teaching that in a different way, right? So there's just so many beautiful, and I say this all the time, there's so many beautiful modalities out there that support the same thing in a different way, because again, healing is not linear, and there's not one way to do it. And I just love that there's all of these different ways out there to teach the same thing, and, you know, people aligning to that and it being accepted within the community of a corporate environment where you're going to teach somebody, like, this is how you love yourself, and this is how you advocate for yourself, and these are your energy centers, and I'm going to teach you how to step into action to create confidence and balance within your existence. And I actually love that so much.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it totally, it tracks exactly to what you're saying. Like, the red thread that I pull together for what both of us have just said is, like, that emotions are also just information. And oftentimes we feel like you'll just take things so much less personally when you realize that people have their own ecosystems. People are not usually trying to be intentionally offensive 90% of the time. There's a 10% of people who are that ruin it for the other 90. We can say that in any area, but it's like it's like know thyself so that you can advocate for yourself and then allow other people to just be themselves too. And then you see if you click. If you don't, you can agree that, yeah, we're just going to work on, tax season together. We may not like each other in our personal decisions or personal, hobbies or whatever, but we can at least agree to agree on this thing and agree to disagree on the other things that we don't serve a purpose for each other outside of this, project, for example.
Right. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. So this has been like super informative in how you can take one element and one modality and like help people understand like where to go with life as far as like a work situation. Yeah. Let's shift over very quickly before we wrap up today. Because like I got the whole spiritual thing down, but we talk about relationships because I'm always channeling. And then you have all of these things within these energy centers. What are the biggest things that might like support healthy relationships outside of my spiritual work? We talked about this too.
Yes. Well, that's where I love to look at the profiles because I say that they're like the costume of your life purpose, right? So similar to
people all the time.
Yes, I love that. Yes. It's like similar to our rising sign. Like I'm an Aquarius rising, so I'm always bringing something like quirky and edgy. They call us the alien, ahead. So if I'm a 1-3, right, and navigating this in relationship, for example, I need long periods of introspection. So there's 12 profiles you can have, one of 6 profile lines that make up this proper or improper fraction. Yours is an fraction because you have a 4-1 profile, Valerie. Susan, do you know what your profile is off the top of your head?
No, I would have to go back and look, and I'm so afraid to because I feel like I'll jump out of here.
No, I know. Let me know after, and I'd be happy to just give you a little like blurb via email or something. But when you have, say, for example, a 4 in your profile in relationship, you're somebody who's not going to date somebody that has completely different values from you. So Valerie, you having a 4 in your profile, Susan, you may be a 2-4 potentially. Although 5-1 also is maybe interesting. I can kind of guess sometimes. But when you have a 4 in your profile, it's known as the opportunist line. So you're people who always are seeking out like opportunities to do something, or people are acknowledging in you that you have something that, they want. So this is what we were saying too, about when you're going, out to, an event and you're in the mindset of like, maybe it's a work event, but maybe you're also in that headspace of dating. Like when you're a 4 person, what's helpful is to go into environments where there's already a common theme to talk about, where you have a shared common interest as a 4 line looking to date or call in relationship. When you're a 5-1 profile in human design, for example, it's the combination of the heretic and the investigator. People can project onto 5-1s that they can solve their problems, even if they've never experienced said problem that this person is having, right? So you're saying like, I don't know, help me because I broke my leg and I don't know who it is that I should go to for physical therapy. And the 5-1 is like, well, I've never broken my leg before. How the hell do you expect me to know like what that experience is like? So there's a lot of that where 5-1s in dating can also experience people projecting onto them that they're the person that can really be the legs in the relationship, where maybe you want a partner, you don't want to be somebody because your career is important that's at home nurturing this person all the time. So I'll also say that at 2-4 people who are 2-4 profiles also tend to need, I always say they're the most projector-like profile that you can have in human design, where they need a lot of like physical rest. So if you're with somebody that's go, go, go and doesn't see like rest being important and they're burning the candle at both ends, that's not really going to be best suited for someone who's a 2-4 that needs to advocate for their rest. And they may feel like they need to overcompensate for somebody who's a little bit more go, go, go. So
ironically, I had a dear friend in the corporate America who texted me the other day and say, do you know anything about human design? I just saw something. And it was so, the synchronicities, right? So it was just really interesting because she and I had worked together. She's not a therapist, but she was on the other side, the tech side. And I was like, yeah, I can't wait to send her this. I can't wait to send her this this podcast because she's going to love it. I just, as we wrap up, Brenna, just quickly tell people where we will have this in the show notes, but for people listening, where can they find you if they want to know more about what you do and what human design is, and tell us.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so my website is brennakeeley.com. It's BRENNAKEELEY. I have all of my mentoring and my corporate sustainability training is like available if you want to reach out to me just via my contact page. I only have my readings available via my website right now because I have so much going on, thankfully, in that world where I'm like, inquire first. We'll see how we can make it work and what a proper
There has
time
to be an
is.
alignment too, right?
Exactly.
Not
Yeah,
everybody
like I'm not just
long
here saying
term
that.
work. Yeah.
Yes, we're not. I know the way that I best serve people who I mentor and then do corporate sustainability training for. But my website is the best way, and then I'm also on TikTok. I have a from Monday through Thursday, usually starting at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, my human design hotline. So it's kind of like an Ask Abby column where people can bring their questions and also get mini readings, which is how lovely Valerie and I met.
Yes.
And then, yeah, that's my handle is at Brenna's here. So BRENNASHERE. And then I'm also on Instagram at Brenna M. Keeley as well. So three portals for you to find me.
Wonderful. This has been fabulous. Thank you so much for coming
It has
on.
been.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, this has been great. So if anyone's really trying to do a deeper dive on themselves, their work, their connection with other people, like definitely reach out to Brenna. Her level of detail with all of this, I can say was awesome for me, but I'm like a truth seeker. So I'm like, give me all the knowledge.
Yes.
But I have to say, with anything in life, knowledge is power, and you're definitely someone that's empowering people. And that's what I'm all about within my work and within Illumi-Nation also. And so bringing in empowerment so people can strengthen their experience here as a human. So awesome! Thank you so much
Thank you
for
both.
sharing everything today. And I look forward to staying in touch with you for other things too. I love your energy. You're absolutely phenomenal.
Me too. I loved it too.
Thank
And I want to
you.
thank all of our listeners. I hope you guys, I always trust that you're going to take what you need from this. Again, everything will be in the show notes. If you're watching YouTube, please check out the description of this podcast and you will be able to find Brenna. Thank you guys.
Thank
Have
you.
a beautiful day.
You as
We'll
well.
see you here next week. Bye-bye for now.